Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as I rock it team.
Right, here we are, Fight Talk Down Under, episode 5. It seems like just yesterday it was just Fight Talk Down Under was just something that was just existed in our inboxes. It was just messages back and forth between my co-host and I, but here we are, 5 episodes in. My co-host, of course, is Lockjaw Justin Van Heerden. Justin, how are you, mate?
Good. Obviously, as you know, I sort of touched base with you. There's some like torrential cyclonic weather sort of happening down here in Wollongong at the moment. So we had some sort of technical difficulties sort of getting here now and recording the episode today, but we're here, we're doing it. So that's good. Pretty stoked.
Yeah, that's good. We're happy to have you here. We obviously had a bit of a hiccup last night as well with some feral children on both ends there. So we're here. It's Tuesday night. We're managing to record. So we push through. We endure.
We made it. We're taking these little hiccups, these little challenges, and we're just pressing on. So as long as we keep doing that, we can keep putting out this content, and then our listeners can get their fix.
Absolutely. And get their fix they will. And this week, we'll pretty much cover off UFC 272 from the weekend. There's plenty to cover from that one, of course. Starting with Jamie Mullarkey, who was our Australian representative on the card. Obviously didn't go his way in the end. He's been a training partner of yours, so I'm sure you'll have some insight for us. But the fight sort of, I guess it kind of started out as you'd expect. Mullarkey was fighting at a bit of a furious pace there, and he found a home for that left hook that he's been wrecking opponents with in his recent fights, and even stuck a takedown in round 1. But in the end, it kind of felt like he probably took a few too many shots on the way out, and he got put away early in the second round. So what did you make of it?
Yeah, obviously, not the result that we all wanted, and certainly not the result that Jamie would have wanted. Especially after the killer camp he put on and the kind of shape he was in and the work that he did. But obviously I waited till a couple of days till about this morning to message him, flick a message to him and kind of touch base with him and see how he was going. Obviously he's disappointed. You're always going to be disappointed after a loss, but already the guys focused on getting back to work, improving, moving forward, and then that's always good to see, and that's kind of what you need. He's no stranger to it. He's had to do it before, but he's someone that's going to take the good things out of this performance, correct the bad things that happened, and be able to move forward and build up. I certainly, even just after talking to him today, kind of even more so, it's just kind of drilled it into me that, the guy believes that he's going to be world champion one day, and I believe that he's going to be a world champion one day. So, yeah, obviously he's a bit bummed with the result, but, yeah, I think he said – yeah, it was just that. It was just a case of, being normally where he's so disciplined with the head movement and able to move out on the exits and avoid those shots. I think, this time around it was just sort of that wasn't happening as well. Obviously, he adjusted towards the end of the first round, got the takedown, and was able to, put Jalen on his back and kind of control him quite easily, considering, Jalen's quite dangerous on the mat as well, and he's a very long guy. He's got long limbs. He could throw up submissions quite easily, triangles, all that sort of stuff. So Jamie managed to kind of shuttle that down and control him. So heading into the second round, I thought, okay, he's made the adjustment. His fight IQ is good. He's going to be like, okay, let's do those sort of things. Let's get in. Let's make it a sort of gritty fight. Let's lay in those shots from the inside, and then ultimately let's level change to take him down and wear on him, and then kind of, go from there. But obviously Jalen was able to make his own adjustments and reads. And obviously Jamie's got really good head movement, and he's constantly dipping and rolling and slipping. And Jalen made a good read on that. And every time Jamie was kind of doing that, he would throw that knee up the middle, and then that was landing a couple of times. So I think that, that wasn't helping the situation. And then obviously, like you said, the couple of extra shots on the exit where you might have landed 1 or 2, but you're wearing 3 or 4 on the way out, obviously that's going to accumulate and take a toll on you. But like I said, man, he's in a good sort of spirits. Obviously you're going to be disappointed and upset, but he's the type of guy that's going to get straight back to work. I won't be surprised if, as soon as he's back from the USA, if he's back down here in camp helping Volk prepare for Zombie and just carrying on as normal.
Do you have any insight on the stoppage itself? Like it didn't look like a sort of a concussive sort of punch, as it were. It seemed to kind of land on the ear by watching by watching the replay, and he seemed to sort of fold in pain almost. It was almost like it might have sort of cracked his jaw or something like that. Did you get any sort of insight on sort of what led to the stoppage there?
Nah, I didn't sort of go into detail with him yet about how much how hurt he was after that sort of shot, but just from my own sort of point of view, when you are in a fight and you do get clipped in that spot there where you're going behind the ear, sort of on the jaw behind the ear, that's that sweet spot. Like that, if that doesn't put you out and put you like unconscious straight away, yeah, it's going to ring your bell a little bit. Those are the ones that kind of dig in a bit, especially if someone's throwing them looping shots, because if you can the way to sort of explain it is like if someone's throwing punches at you and you can kind of see the punches, even though they might like you, and maybe you're moving or whatever, and they're sort of landing because you can see them coming, and you can make the read that there's punches there. Even if they land, you're kind of already kind of bracing for it, and your body's kind of reacting to it. But some of those ones and some of those ones that sneak around the guard or kind of come from an angle and loop around and then just clip you behind the ear, and then all of a sudden your brain's not just, it's like a shock to the system. So I certainly, Jalen looks like someone that hits pretty hard as well, so I can't imagine that would have been great to get hit by him in general, especially not in a place like that where it's sort of behind the ear and where it's going to ring your bell that little bit extra. But I imagine that, like, just knowing Jamie, knowing the type of person he is, seeing him, the work that he does, and watching some of his previous fights, and like you obviously watch like the Brad Riddell fight and stuff like that, he's not just someone that quits and just kind of throws in the towel and just gives up. If he went down, I'd imagine it was because he was got caught with a good shot, because he's certainly the last person that I would put into the category of just getting clipped and then just bitching it.
Absolutely, and his opponent Jalen Turner actually pointed to that in the post-fight press conference. He said he lit him up with some hard shots, and he said his toughness, like his resilience was just second to none. He said it was incredible because like Jalen Turner's he's a finisher. We can just look down his record. He's got I think 11 wins on his record, 9 KOs and 3 submissions. So the guy's a dangerous guy, and he's he wins all his fights inside the distance. And he said that he hit Jamie with some shots that have put other fighters away, and Jamie just kept coming. So, that's I guess as good of a compliment as you can get from someone like Jalen Turner in a defeat like that is that he sort of walked through things that other people didn't. But I mean, like Jalen Turner now, he's proven to be a bit of an Aussie killer, as we sort of touched on in the episode last week. He's got a TKO of a Callan Potter. And Josh Kulabau. Now he's added Jamie Mullarkey to his list, and he named Brad Riddell as someone who he'd like to fight next in his post-fight press conference as well. So he's obviously got a taste for the Anzac blood in the end. But during the fight, he really seemed just super composed, like against a guy like Mullarkey, who's in your face, fights at a pace, hits hard. He didn't seem rattled by anything really that Jamie threw at him. He just controlled range. He wasn't afraid to exchange with Mullarkey in close. So, like, how good do you feel like Jalen Turner is? Like, how far do you think he can go?
Yeah, man, that dude's talented. Like, obviously, and his comments post fight would sort of touch on the respect that he had for Jamie coming in as well. And like that division is just so crazy with the talent that's coming up. Like obviously someone like Jalen Turner, he could do some great things in that division. He's a big guy for the division. He's tall, he's long, rangy, obviously 100% finish rate. The guy puts people away. Like if you give him an opportunity, he's going to take advantage of it and he's going to finish the fight. So he's got all the tools and skills and sort of, aggression and sort of killer instinct to be able to go far in the division. It's going to be interesting to see how he matches up against some of these other guys that have a bit more experience, a bit more of a stronger sort of wrestling and grappling pedigree, and can mix it in real well. That's going to be interesting to see because obviously, we saw towards the end of the first round, Jamie took him down and he didn't really, he was trying to move, trying to throw stuff up, trying to do stuff, but was able to, Jamie was able to kind of control him quite easily on the ground and kind of keep him in position. And, you look at that division, there's a few guys in that division that you kind of don't, you do some shit like that, you're going to have a bad night. Like even a couple of weeks ago, you look at someone like Sarukian who just fought, if he was to match up with someone like that, Jalen's on a bit of a win streak. He's doing quite well. If he's going to fight someone who's in that top 15, you might get matched up with someone like that. The UFC's been known to do stuff like that. They don't really care. You match up him with a guy like Saruki and he's going to get the shit beat out of him. So, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that sort of stuff. If he is actually as well-rounded as it seems that he is, looking at it on paper. But, I feel like he can do really well. But I also feel like it's been a bit of a weird one because whenever someone finishes someone and all their fights have been finishes and it's usually like fairly quickly into the fight, it's hard to kind of go, okay, well, this person's going to be a stone cold killer and is going to be able to just fly through because you haven't seen what it's like when they're experiencing adversity. You haven't seen how they adjust when they aren't able to do that. How's he going to be if he gets put on his back in the first round and for 5 minutes, he's on the bottom getting his head punched in and he's got to come out for a second round. His arms are heavy, his legs are heavy, and he's got to he's got to progress forward and try and make those adjustments. He might do just that and he might still find that finish. Or there's a very good chance he breaks down completely and crumbles under that adversity because he doesn't have the opportunity to finish the fight and it's not going his way.
Yeah, exactly. It's always the question mark with someone like that, isn't it? When he's been finishing people on the feet, you just, it's always the big test at UFC level is once you come up against someone with that wrestling pedigree. And I love that Sarukian matchup. That's fantastic. I think, Justin Van Heerden should be, UFC.
Look, honestly, if the UFC if they want me to match make some fights, I'll gladly do it. I'll put the fights in that people want to see. But I'd like to see Jalen take on someone in the top 15 in his next fight. And for Jamie, I'd like to see Jamie, he's obviously going to rebuild and work on those things that kind of went wrong for him, keep improving the things that went right. And then, I'd like to see him maybe come back, probably June, July, potentially, get back in and kind of, get stuck in, There's a few interesting matchups. The division's obviously stacked, but obviously, we've seen with some of these matchups that they offer these Anzac fighters, they're not, the sympathy's really not there. So you obviously just fought someone like Jalen Turner. Before that, he fought Devontae Smith. Before that, he fought Carmen Worthy. All these guys have they've got the ability to put your lights out when they hit you, and they're dangerous matchups. So I think that as soon as he's back in there, it's going to be no different. They're going to feed him into another sort of killer, and it's going to be, I feel like he's going to be able to come back and put on another sort of 50K bonus type performance.
Yeah, there's no padding of records in the UFC, is there? They just throw everyone to the wolves, and may the strongest survive, really. And I think Jalen Turner, he's probably earned that top 15 opportunity. I think both Malaki and Turner are probably on the cusp of the rankings there. He's obviously just beaten Malaki in emphatic fashion there, so he's probably earned that right. But Malaki, no doubt he's going to get thrown another killer, and I think that's probably a vote of confidence in a lot of ways from the UFC, that they really believe that he can hang with these guys and he can have exciting fights with these finishes. And look, up until the weekend, he had passed all those tests with flying colours. He put away Karma Worthy and Devontae Smith, as you mentioned there, who are both really dangerous fighters. So there's no real reason to doubt him. So hopefully they throw him another fun one next. But it'll be fun to see where he goes. And in the main event, we had Covington versus Masvidal. Now, obviously, there was a huge build up to this one, given their history as former teammates, and You know, we talked about the wrestling skills being the big leveler in this one in episode 4, and so it proved in the end. Justin Van Heerden was on the money once again with his prediction there, and Masvidal dropped Covington to a knee at least in round 4, but outside of that, really, it was it was all Colby Covington. So how did you break that one down?
I think that they did an excellent job at selling what was always going to be a one-sided fight. I think they finessed us all. I don't even think that they really hate each other as much as they portrayed it to be. I feel like, because I was watching the broadcast and then I watched it back even, and end of the 4th round when the ref splits them apart and they're kind of jabbering with each other or talking at each other, Masvidal clearly says to Colby, he says, 5 more minutes and we get paid. That's a weird thing to say to a dude that you dislike, apparently. So, yeah. No, but obviously, they got after it a bit. Covington got dropped, whereas he said he took a knee for the first responders. But yeah, Colby did what Colby does. He's the second best welterweight on planet Earth, and it showed. And he showed that Masvidal, even though he made somewhat of improvements, he definitely had some defensive wrestling improvements and was able to sort of, deal with it a bit better than he did in the first Usman fight. But ultimately, the grappling pedigree, the wrestling pedigree, the grind, the pace that Colby puts on just wore on him. And he was able to sort of just pick Masvidal apart and just do his thing. George even touched on in the post-fight, he said that, he had him hurt in the 4th and he was just, didn't capitalize on it. And even after the fight in the initial chat in the octagon, he kept talking about being too flat-footed and too lazy with the wrestling defense and the defensive wrestling. He kept saying the wrestling, which says to me that your whole camp and plan and game planning and the work that your coaches at ATT did was all the wrestling focus. So that means to me that they didn't then still highlight and go, well, here's where you can be dangerous. Here's the stuff that you can do some work in. And obviously, so when he buzzed Colby, he didn't follow up because in his mind, he was like, I got to worry about the wrestling. He didn't follow up. He didn't capitalize, which was super strange to see. Another thing that I noticed about the fight that was really weird is Masvidal looked a lot bigger than usual. He looked a bit beefier than usual. I feel like I know Colby says that he doesn't cut a lot of weight for welterweight, but Masvidal certainly looked a lot bigger than he normally does. And I'm wondering if that was also part of the sort of plan to kind of beef up a bit, be a bit bigger, so that you are in these wrestling exchanges. It's probably a bit harder for Colby to kind of take you down. I don't know if that was part of the plan or if that was sort of like just a kind of game plan type thing, or maybe just laziness. Who knows? But he certainly didn't look as lean and as mean as he did coming into the second Usman fight. He had the extra bit of body weight there. You could see it kind of hanging over the shorts and the tights a little bit, which is weird to see for someone like Masvidal because usually he's in shape. The dude comes correct. In the first fight with Usman, when it was on short notice, he cut all that weight. The dude was in shape. He was already at a bit extra weight to cut, but the guy was in shape. You could tell he was in some sort of shape. So whether that played a factor or not, I don't know. You can certainly see that he was a bit destroyed after the fight, and he was wrecked. His cardio pretty well gone, even though he went the full distance. So what to do with that fight? What to do with both of those guys? Obviously, Colby won. He's in a weird spot. He's lost to the champ twice. Had Masvidal won, it's the same sort of scenario. I feel like Colby needs to beat someone else and then kind of puts himself right back in there for a third Usman fight. But, he's obviously asked to fight Dustin Poirier. Whether that happens or it doesn't happen, I don't know. It's a weird sort of fight. It's a weird sort of call out to make. I saw someone speaking about an interesting fight to put together would be Covington versus Bobby Knuckles. If Bobby Knuckles is a bit weird on where he wants to be, and if he wants to drop down or move up or whatever he wants to do, then that could be an interesting matchup. It'd be a really good matchup to see at welterweight. For Masvidal, he just signed the biggest or third highest contract in UFC history. He's the third highest paid athlete behind Adesanya and Conor. I feel like for Masvidal, you got to regroup and then try and pursue some of these money fights, as we call them. You got to be trying to get that Conor McGregor fight. You got to be trying to get that Nate Diaz rematch. try and build that up, and capitalize on the fact that you're making all this money now. It sounds harsh to say, but I don't see Masvidal winning the world title at that weight division, especially not against guys like Usman and Covington, whose wrestling pedigree is so high. And then you got to talk about guys like Hamzat, guys like Gilbert Burns, who also horrible matchups stylistically for someone like Masvidal. By all means, if there was a world where you made an agreement and you said no takedowns, Masvidal could piece up a lot of these dudes on the feet. Potentially, not Usman. Obviously, we saw that in the second fight. Usman knocked him clean out. But he's still a dangerous fight for a lot of people, and he's still one of the top welterweights in the world, no doubt. But as far as winning the belt, I can't see that happening.
Yeah, I think for Covington's part, he's sort of, he recognises that he's 0-2 against Usman, so he sort of needs to put himself into a fight that's going to do some good numbers in the interim. And I think the storyline with Dustin Poirier and ATT probably made sense to him at the time. So that could be something that's going to make him some money in the interim while he sort of tries to get himself back into a fight with Usman. But Masvidal's an interesting one. Like you mentioned, there was he signed the third highest contract in UFC history there, and he's now got 3 losses in a row. Like, he had a good run there. He beat Diaz for that BMF belt. He knocked out Darren Till over in the UK, and then obviously there was the Askren knockout, which really kind of launched him into the stratosphere. And but now he's 37 years old. He's probably looked a little bit out of sorts in his last couple of fights, and as you sort of mentioned there, the takedowns have been his Achilles heel along the way. So it's kind of a curious thing. We know he has drawing power, but with the losses that he's racking up, and potentially at his age, and with maybe losing a bit of form there, it seems kind of a curious thing to sign him to such a massive deal at this stage of his career.
Well, even now, like, obviously, I fight, and from a fighter point of view, I can make all these assessments. But for someone, okay, so I'll ask you this question: when you see that Masvidal's booked to fight, right, moving forward, he's obviously, like you said, he's 3 losses back to back now. If moving forward, the UFC announces a fight for Masvidal, are you going to be hyped for it, or are you kind of going to be like, is this what are we? Is this going to be worth watching? Because they obviously think that he's worth a shit ton of money, and they've signed this contract with him. So they think it's kind of a similar situation to the McGregor, where it doesn't matter if he wins or he loses or what the go is. When he's fighting, you kind of want to tune in. Do you think that that's the same? Is that something that from your point of view, do you think that that's the same thing?
Well, yeah, I'm always stoked to watch Masvidal fight, but sort of given his recent form, it's probably lost a little bit of the shine for me. Like, he's he obviously got I guess that sort of invincibility kind of got smashed when he got knocked out by Usman, and then obviously looked a bit out of sorts on the weekend. So it's probably not something that I would sort of set aside a weekend now to watch Masvidal fight, but it's always it's icing on the top, but. If they're signing this guy to a huge contract, I think he needs to be like a headliner, like the big draw. And they've obviously got all the metrics as well. They've obviously recognised that he moves the needle from where they sit, so it would have to make sense for them. But it's probably lost a little. Like, Masvidal's probably lost a little bit of the shine for me. In his recent outings.
Yeah, I can't see myself getting hyped to see Masvidal fight, especially not where he is in the division. And you look at the matchups that they're going to give him moving forward. If you're talking about non-money fights, the guys that he's going to potentially get matched with is like Burns, Wonderboy, Luque, guys like that who are trying to build themselves up and secure a title shot type deal. And man, they're not good matchups for the guy. Burns is a horrible matchup for him. Luque is a horrible matchup for him. Wonderboy already pieced him up. So it's kind of it's a hard position to be in. And then obviously he does go on, okay, let's go the other end of the thing. You say, okay, the guy picks himself up, dusts himself off, goes on a mad run, knocks a few people out, gets a few wins behind him. And then the UFC is like, okay, you have the Covington rematch. It's not going to turn out any different. Or they go, by some miracle, he racks up enough wins and it works out. He fights Usman again. I don't see it going a different way. I wouldn't put my money on a knockout for Usman like he did in the second fight. I feel like it could happen, but like I feel like it'd just be more of a, he gets grinded out and pounded out over a certain time and kind of finished on the ground, unless the guy just make some serious adjustments in that department and kind of builds himself up. But I just can't see it. Like we said, man, he's 37 years old. The dude's had 50 MMA fights. He's not going to change anything drastically at this point now. Or at least I don't see that happening. I don't see him doing something as major as that and pulling a Glover Teixeira type move and coming back and winning the belt, because I feel like old habits die hard. The dude's just going to want to scrap. That's what he's known for. Started in the streets, made it to the big show, and that's kind of what's worked for him and propelled him into the stratosphere of fame in the sport. I don't see him changing that, and unfortunately, the division he's in and the people that he's fighting in the top of the division, it just doesn't match up well.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the Luque fight. I think that's a fun one on paper, but really taking matchups like that for someone like Masvidal and the star power he has, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? Like, that's a really expensive gatekeeper for the UFC to have. If he's going to start fighting some of these up and coming guys like Luque, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So really, all that's left for Masvidal, obviously barring another run at the title, like you said, is just novelty fights. Whether he he fights, I don't know, Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor, or Nate. I don't know if a rematch with Nate Diaz really tickles my fancy that much. It was sort of a bit of a one-sided fight in the end. So, but
there's always the Leon Edwards fight too. There's always the Leon Edwards fight. Like, hype-wise, you could hype that fight up and do something, but Leon would beat the crap out of him. Like, let's be honest, that'd be a horrible matchup. But that could do that. That's another fight. There's obviously the Conor fight. Conor's looking a bit beefier than usual at the moment, so you could put that fight together in welterweight and kind of just get it going, make it a big spectacle. It's going to be a hard sell trying to do the Nate rematch. Obviously, I think they said that they both did say that after the first fight that they'd run it back, but it's a hard thing to sort of put together. And then, the Leon Edwards fight, based on their sort of history with each other and him hitting him in England after he knocked out Darren Till and all that sort of stuff. Which, funny enough, that actually in the last couple of days, a friend of mine who's from England, who is, kind of grew up in Birmingham, near, sort of, and liaised in sort of similar circles as Edwards growing up. I've been told apparently when that happened, right, they used like a police escort to escort Masvidal out of the arena straight to the airport, because the guys that Edwards is associated with, they weren't just looking to like beat on Masvidal, like they were going to kill him. So the UFC was like, let's get some cops. Let's escort him straight to the thing. Let's get him out of the country. Because, had they not done that, if they just tried to get him back to the hotel or whatever, then he might not be walking around to be this great big personality that he's turned into that we've seen.
Yeah, Leon Edwards has got some connections there. That's an
some unsavory characters are involved in Leon Edwards.
Absolutely. There you go. But I think that matchup, obviously they've sort of hyped it themselves with the whole 3-piece and a soda sort of situation, backstage there. But I think that one's really predicated on, because Leon Edwards is sort of owed a title shot really at this point. So that matchup would really be predicated on Edwards sort of shaking out of the rankings a little bit. I think, it would kind of be a hard sell for, Edwards, who's on the cusp of a title shot, to then take on,
I believe he is
Masvidal.
next.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like, he would have to sort of maybe lose the title, or maybe he would have to win the title and Masvidal would have to reel off some wins or whatever. But it feels like that one's sort of a little way down the track. It'd be hard for the UFC to put those two together in the short term, I would have thought. But
I agree.
Yeah.
But also, look how unlucky Leon Edwards has been. The poor guy's had like the worst luck out of anyone. So, I don't want to throw more bad luck the guy's way, but the guy could potentially get stitched up again with some stupid sort of situation, and then obviously, and then they might be like, well, we can't do the Usman fight, but we got Masvidal, and then he might take it just to stay active, which he has done with all some of these other matchups. Especially like with the fight with Bilal Muhammad and stuff like that. Really, the guy should have had a title shot already, and he keeps taking these other fights because the guy's obviously a competitor and wants to stay active. But yeah, so I could potentially see something like that happening. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't really make sense outside of that for him to fight Masvidal.
I guess in a sporting sense, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, does it? But yeah, like you say, you could see it happening. Like you could see the UFC just saying, look, we've got another opponent for Usman, whoever it is. Maybe just take Masvidal in the meantime. We'll give you a couple of thousand extra or something. We'll make it a bit of a money fight. And knowing Edwards' luck, you could see him getting clipped with a punch, and then the title shot going up in smoke again. It'd be a risky maneuver, but I think he's shown that he's pretty content to sort of sit back and wait for a title shot. But anyway, we're here on for Fight News Australia, so we do have some Australian representatives in other promotions. Well, we did have some Australian representatives coming up in other promotions. We've had a bit of misfortune, and we'll get to that. But we got one championship lights out this weekend. It's Friday night. It's headlined by Tan Lee versus Gary Tonin, which is actually a really fun fight in itself. And John Lineker fights for the title over there against Bibiano Fernandez. So there's some fun fights, and the Australian on the card, there's two Australians on the card. One is Martin the Situation Nguyen, who's a former two-weight champion in one championship. He's taking on Kirill Gorobets, I think is how we might pronounce that name there. So Martin Nguyen, he lost his featherweight title to Tan Lee, who's headlining this card in his last fight, and 2 fights ago, and he has since lost to Kim Jae-woong. So he's on a 2-fight skid. The interesting thing with Martin Nguyen is that he's a huge star in Asia because of obviously his exploits. He once was had the 2 belts in one championship, but no one's really heard of him here in Australia, and it's fascinating. I actually brought this up with him in an interview I had with him a while back. He doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, which is unbelievable given his accomplishments in the sport. But he's been training at Sanford MMA recently for his fight camps, and he's going to want to. He's a close friend of Ong La Song, who's a huge star in one championship and had a devastating loss against Vitaly Bigdash on the weekend as well. So he's going to be keen to sort of to get one back for his mate there, I think, and get himself back on track for the title. He's got Gorobets, who's making his one debut. He's mostly fought on home soil in the Ukraine, and so obviously given the situation over there, he's going to be emotional himself. So it's going to be an interesting matchup there. But have you had a look into this one? And how do you view Martin Nguyen's situation at the moment?
Yeah, I just want to see that guy get back to where he was, man. Obviously, I got a lot of time and respect for that dude. He's super cool, and to see him go from where he was to the sort of misfortune he's experienced recently and to where he's at now is pretty rough, obviously, but I still have full confidence that guy's going to be able to come back, build himself back up, get back to a title shot, win the belt back, and kind of get back to sort of where he was. He's got that sort of world championship mentality, and obviously he's shown what he's capable of inside that one circle numerous times. So, I feel like, this matchup's obviously intriguing. Whenever you're fighting someone from an Eastern Bloc country, you got to know that they're gonna be gritty, they're gonna be tough, they're gonna be able to grapple, they're gonna be able to wrestle, and they're gonna be able to go for days. As you said, being from the Ukraine, he might be a bit emotional. He might be even more charged up to come out there and win and kind of show that Ukrainians are warriors and they're tough people, and that they aren't gonna be oppressed by what Russia's doing over there in that part of the world at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. I'd like to see Martin just kind of come out and do his thing and land that right hand, land that overhand right, and close the show. But he's obviously in a tough position, but he is a massive star. So it's not like we're in a situation where if he loses this fight, one championship turns around and goes, all right, catch you later, we don't need you anymore. The dude's too big of a draw, too big of a star, and the views and numbers that they actually reel in for one championship is actually pretty crazy. And to think of all that, and like you said, that he's sort of a bit unknown, unless you're sort of involved in the sport. A lot of people don't know about the guy, which is crazy considering some of the performances he's had and some of the stuff that he's done and accomplished. It makes no sense to me. The guy should be an absolute superstar back here.
Absolutely, yeah. And like one championship is just it's a huge deal in Asia, and just sort of it's still kind of catching on here in sort of the Western world, I guess. But you know. Martin Ewan is, just one of the guys at the coalface, like you say there, and it's not exactly a loser leaves town sort of situation really for him. He's obviously going to have his place in one championship for a long time to come, just because people love him over there. But he is fun to watch, and like you mentioned, that overhand right, he's one of those fighters where. You know what he's going to try and do, but he still he still manages to get it done. He just finds a way, and that overhand right is something else. He's put some guys out pretty spectacularly over there. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun one, and like you say as well, he's a lovely guy. I have interviewed him once before, and he was just in his hotel room over in Florida. He'd just been training at Sanford at the time, and he was happy to sort of hang around for a chat afterwards as well. He gave it was a longer interview than I normally do, and lovely guy. He's a guy that you really want to see do well. So I do hope
he's also an absolute gun at Call of Duty. I don't know if people know that, but the guy streams and plays Call of Duty every now and then. Absolute beast at that too. He's like world championship level at that as well. It's quite frustrating. I've come up against him a few times on the old online gaming, and he slapped me up a few times, but we always have some good banter and stuff like that. So that's why I said I got a lot of time for the guy, and I want to see him do well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I didn't know that he had that string to his bow as well. He's knocking people out in Call of Duty as well. So there you go. Also on the card, speaking of lovely guys, also on the card was supposed to be Reece McLaren. He was supposed to take on Ji Wei. And we've just found out earlier today, actually, it's Tuesday when we're recording here. I've just found out earlier today that Reece is actually withdrawn from the fight due to an unforeseen health concern. Because it's only gone down today. We don't. I haven't actually managed to get to the bottom of it, but it's a shame for Reece. He's he's coming off a loss. And before that he had 2 wins on the bounce, and he was pretty close to another title shot. He did challenge for the flyweight title back in 2016. Ji Wei was on a 3-fight win streak, so presumably a win over him would have probably put him close to the title. So it seems a good opportunity's gone begging, and hopefully all is well with Reece McLaren, because we don't really know what the nature of it is.
Yeah, that's a weird situation to be in, where you're about to fight some guy with a lot of momentum that you can potentially snatch away, and then if it falls through, or it has fallen through like it has now, then that's kind of a missed opportunity. And then you come back, you heal up, or whatever the case is, if it's an injury or whatever it is, and then they offer you another matchup. Is it going to be one that has the similar sort of implications, or is it going to just be a fight that's kind of more of a tune-up fight for you to get back in there, and then you got to build yourself back up and go on a bit of a win streak? Yeah, so it's a weird position to be in. Probably just stubbed his toe or something, stood on some Lego and just didn't want to fight. But that's about all I'll say. As I said to you, or fair, I'm not a big fan of the bloke. I'm not gonna hide that. So yeah, hopefully he heals up, gets back in there soon, and I can watch someone else punch him in the face really hard.
Yeah, there you go. There's some airing out some beef there, but yeah. Well, we'll wait and see. It's a bit of a watch this space with Reece McLaren. We don't really know what the situation is there, but he has been replaced on the card by Josh Tonner, who is an Australian Muay Thai fighter. He's against a Chinese fighter who's, I think, is making his one debut, from what I can tell. It's Zhang Pimian. Don't know how to. Quite
You're nailing these pronunciations. You're doing a lot better than I would be anyway.
Oh, look, we could make a highlight reel of all my interviews of the names that I've butchered over the years. I was talking, I can't remember who I was talking to River Daz, actually. I interviewed River Daz a couple of weeks ago, and he butchered the name of one of his trainers, I think, and I sort of reassured him by saying, look, we could have a long highlight reel of all the names that I've butchered over the years. So there you go. There's another one to add to the list. But Josh Tonner, he's had quite an extensive career. He's beaten Andy Howson in one championship, which is no mean feat at all. And he lost to Same, who's a Thai superstar in his last
Absolute
fight.
beast.
So he's probably he's got to be in the mix for a title fight, really. When he's fighting people like Same. So, it's a big opportunity for the Chinese lad as well to take on someone like Josh Tonner in his first fight. So that one's going to be an interesting watch as well.
Yeah, that'd be a good scrap. Yeah, like you said, that's kind of, yeah, it's an interesting. That's another thing that's sort of the matchups there that are sort of there for both of these guys. If they can capitalize and get a win, they're not easy matchups, and they're the type of fights that put you in the running for a title fight. And so it just shows you that it's going to be competitive, and it's going to be sort of a delightful fight for the fans to watch.
Exactly, and the kickboxing and the Muay Thai divisions, they're not exactly all that deep in one championship. One championship has a huge roster. They have a lot of divisions across 3 different sports, MMA, kickboxing, and Muay Thai. So they can't hold a lot of people in a lot of these, particularly the striking weight classes. So a fighter like Josh Tonner is never far away from a title shot. So there's always an opportunity there available for them when they win.
And that's
sorry, you go.
Oh yeah, that's something interesting about one championship as well too. Like I've seen that they're starting to sign a lot more grapplers as well, so they're obviously trying to build a grappling sort of base as well. But something that interesting about that is when you sign a contract with one championship, for the most part, obviously there's sometimes where they certain people it doesn't apply to, but I think for the most part, once you sign a contract with one championship, you're not just signing, like, even if you're an MMA fighter, you're not, like, in the contract it'll say, like, if offered a kickboxing or Muay Thai fight, you have to accept it. So you're not just signed to compete in your discipline, which is actually interesting as well. So that's when you've seen some of these other fights come together, where you've seen guys who are predominantly, like, maybe a kickboxer or whatever, having MMA fights, a la Cosimo Alexander, whatever his name is, fighting Sage Northcutt, and then sleeping him. So that's something. And obviously now they're doing the Mighty Mouse Rod Tang fight, which is modified, where they're doing round 1 and 3 Muay Thai, round 2 and 4 MMA. So they're obviously, when you're looking at what they're putting together and the talent that they have, and that's another reason, like you said, in those striking sort of pools, the talent pool's not overly deep. So it's not surprising that you're seeing them throw some of these other matchups together, where they're bringing in, like, some of these MMA fighters to take on some of these more specialized kickboxers.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Daniel Mini T. Williams about this a little while back when he signed with One Championship. His heart's really been in MMA. He's been working on his MMA game. He's obviously had an extensive Muay Thai career, but when he got in contact with One Championship, they sort of said to him, we need Muay Thai fighters at the moment. We've got quite a few MMA fighters, but we're having trouble signing Muay Thai fighters. So, he obviously signed on the dotted line. The contract was a mixed contract for pretty much, like you say, with pretty much any division. Sorry, any sport, any discipline was really on the table there, and they threw him to the wolves there. They gave him Rod Tang in his first fight out, and then he fought Crew Dej in his last fight in MMA. So, I think it's I don't know if it's so much that they have to accept the fight, but he said he had signed to fight a kickboxing fight, I think, last year, which got scratched before he then fought Crew Dej. So it gives him that flexibility there to take on multiple sports, which is it works well for someone like Mini T. He's got his hand in both sports there. But
Exactly.
Also on the in the bigger promotions, we were due to have Aaron Blackie fighting in PFL, and he's also had to withdraw. I've had a couple of days to get to the bottom of this one. I'm told it's a visa issue on the end of on PFL's end, not on Aaron's end. I haven't managed to decipher whether he's actually has to now sit out the season or whether they're going to sort of rebook him. But I feel like he may have missed the boat, because I think the first round of the lightweights this weekend, but I don't know that for sure. But again, it's Aaron Blackie's a guy who's been out for I think 2 or 3 years now. He managed to get the opportunity signing with the PFL, and unfortunately his first fight's gone begging. So another opportunity. He misses out on another opportunity and has to sit on the sidelines for a little bit longer. So yeah, it's a disappointing one for him.
Yeah, that's especially like that when it's something that, especially if it's not from his end. I mean, obviously, like you said, we haven't really had time to. It'll all come to fruition, at some point. But if it's not from his end, that's super disappointing and super frustrating. That something like that's happened. But if it comes out that it was something that maybe that he lapsed on, or his team lapsed on, or his management didn't put together, that's going to be even more frustrating for the poor bloke. Because then his job's to train, prepare himself for the fight, get there and fight. All this other stuff that's meant to just be sorted and be kind of handled, and you just kind of not focus on it. So yeah, hopefully they can rebook it or sort something out for the guy, especially after like you said, he's been away for a few years and now had this opportunity pop up, and now it's not working out. That'd be kind of weird, because if the ship has sailed now and they kind of pass on him, or kind of go, okay, whatever, what's your next option then? You got to come back to Australia and fight here in Australia again, try to get on matchups like on Eternal or something like that. And I can tell you there's going to be, a few guys here that are just going to decline to fight the guy simply based on the fact that he's been out for so long. And it's going to be like, they're going to have that mentality of like, what are you talking about, man? You haven't fought for a few years. We need to see you make it through a camp, make it to a fight and fight someone before we're going to be willing to take a matchup with you. It's a similar situation as like the Alan Philpott situation. The guy's been out for too long. A lot of people are just going to decline the fight based on the fact that we haven't seen you make it to a fight. So if you make it to a fight, you get in there, you compete, it all comes to fruition, then people will be lining up to fight you. But obviously I know it's a bit of a different situation with Blackie and Alan. It's apples and oranges, but I don't want to see Aaron miss out based on something as trivial as a visa issue that was out of his control. That'd be shit. We want to see people in the region do well, and if they get these opportunities and these call ups and these step ups to the next sort of level and these other promotions, that's awesome, and that's what you want to see. And you want to see them do well. I'm not gonna hate on anyone or speak ill on them trying to do that, and especially if they've been given the opportunity. So yeah, especially when it's something like this, man. Like, it'd be different if the guy, like, if he pulled out of the fight and there was some, it was like a silly reason as to why, or some, that he could have controlled or whatever. But something like this, that's an issue on their end where they didn't do the right thing. That's super disappointing.
Yeah, like we've talked about before, like a rising tide lifts all ships, doesn't it? Like, we want to see guys going over to these big promotions and representing the region, and it's a shame that this one's gone south, because obviously Aaron Blackie is a guy he's had his injury problems in the past, and from what I've heard, he was fit and ready to go. So to lose the opportunity over something like a visa is incredibly disappointing. But I guess, you've been through your fair share of fight cancellations, right? And I don't know that really that you've ever pulled out of any fights yourself, but you've had. If you look down your record on Tapology, there's many cancelled fights there where your opponents have pulled out over the years. And
yeah,
like, what would Aaron Blackie be going through right now? Like, he's obviously gone through a camp. He's got this big opportunity, had this big opportunity ahead of him, and it's now fallen south. What can you tell us about what he might be going through at the moment?
Oh man, I bet he's super bummed, super disappointed, especially because, you just have to go look at the guy's social media. The guy's been hyping up the fact that he was going to be doing this. He's put so much pressure on himself, and he's going to do this for himself and his family and everyone that believes in him, and as you do. So I bet he's super bummed by it and super frustrated. I've only sort of spoken to Aaron a few times and kind of dealt with him a few times here and there. Dude seems super nice, man. He seems like someone who's just obsessive over the sport, and whether it's the training side of things, the coaching side of things, and everything in between. So yeah, I bet he's going to be super bummed, super disappointed, and hopefully, yeah, like we said, they can figure something out. But But, on the other side of things, the guy outside of fighting obviously hasn't fought for a few years, but outside of the fighting side of things, the guy's obviously coaching. He's got all these online sort of programmed sort of app things where he's doing all these breakdowns, teaching techniques. The guy's obviously very talented. He's very skilled, not just as a fighter, but as like a coach. He's obviously got the knowledge to pass on from the judo side of things, the jiu-jitsu, the MMA, all that sort of stuff. And, he's up there doing good work with Base Training Center. He's doing good work as Bros Jiu-Jitsu, his own sort of gym that he has. And, he's got a bunch of stuff in the pipeline. The guy's obviously, got some good qualifications behind him as well to fall back onto if, that he obviously has been doing while he hasn't been fighting. So, it's not like the end of the world in the scheme of things, but, it kind of is in a sense, because this was a big opportunity, and it should have come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely, and kind of like you touched on, I guess in a fighting sense, he's if he's not getting rebooked with PFL for this season, then he's in a bit of a weird situation, isn't he? Like you touched on, does he come back and sort of maybe put his position with PFL on the line, or does he sort of wait it out? He's waited out this long. Does he wait it out for next season with PFL? It sounds like he's got some other things going on to tide him over, but I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens with him in the short term, but. Speaking of the local scene, Urban Fight Night have got a double event this weekend, which is in I guess in the scheme of things in the local scene, it's that's a big weekend. From a journalist perspective, it's always a long night and a tiring night, sort of sitting there at the fights, and so the thought of doing it back to back would be a pretty huge thing, but. The first event is headlined by your former opponent Michael Barber, and then we've got Josh Togo as a former Eternal Lightweight champion on the second event. But have you had a look down the cards, and what do you make of Urban Fight Night and the idea of going back to back in a weekend? That's huge.
Yeah, I like it. I like the fact that they're doing that. Gives more people an opportunity to get out there and do their thing, especially for some of these amateurs. It gives them a chance to get in there, get some experience, and get some fights in. Obviously, the Friday night's headlined by Michael and Darwin for the bantamweight title. It should be an absolute scrap. Darwin's got bricks for hands, and he's been known to put people away if he touches them. And Michael's obviously super scrappy. I've fought the guy, so I know that firsthand. He's tough, he's scrappy, he won't quit. And you look at his last performance against Sam Hibbard, man, the guy made it a dogfight and just put it in. And he can certainly do that against Darwin. I mean, as the fight goes, I certainly see Michael with the ability to kind of make it a gritty fight, drag it out, make it ugly and kind of make it sort of a dogfight and a scrap and be able to grind out a decision or maybe put Darwin away with like a cumulative damage. And then from Darwin's side of things, it's going to be, can he land those shots, and will he be able to put Michael away? That's going to be the question. He's got the ability to. He's obviously hits quite hard, and he's done that to so many others. But I don't know. Michael's a special kind of guy, because I beat the crap out of that dude for 3 rounds, and he didn't quit at any point. So, and then I found out after the fact that there's an interesting story about the guy that he actually lost a testicle in an MMA fight, that he fought actually a guy that used to fight out of freestyle, and he got kicked in the groin really hard a couple of times. And I believe he lost a testicle or had his testicle messed up real bad or something like that. So that, that kind of lets you know the dude's mentality. He's not going to quit if you put him in a choke or if you're trying to punch him in the face. Yeah. So, yeah. And then obviously, so that makes it interesting. We'll see what happens. And then the Saturday night, you got Togo taking on Robbie Lara, which will be, potential to be a great scrap. I don't think Lara's fought for a hot minute. It's been a while since he's been in there. Togo's obviously, former champion, beat some sort of super talented dudes. The guys fought on UAE Warriors. Obviously lost the Eternal title via rear naked choke in the 4th round. When he, in that outing, but that's a sort of, that fight was kind of quite competitive, and that was the night, I don't know if you remember, but that was the night that there was some issues with the canvas. It was super slippery and caused a bunch of problems for a few people on the card. It looked like they were fighting on an ice skating rink. So, did that play a factor in him getting caught and ended up in a rear naked choke position and getting submitted, maybe a little bit. Yeah, so I think he's going to come out with extra sort of motivation to put on a show. And even talking to him over the last couple of weeks, the guy's super hyped up to come out there and get a devastating finish. So it's going to be a delight for anyone that sort of watches the fights, whether they attend the events or whether they just stream them and do that sort of stuff. But for sure, double event, back to back, both nights. Get out. The people need to get out and support it, and especially for the amateurs, man, this is going to be a cool thing to see that sort of come together for some of these guys.
Absolutely, and it's a good thing you bring up there. Actually, it's we've got MMA back in Australia here, so it is important for people to actually get down there and get involved, because a lot of these local promotions, I think they kind of they kind of scrape by a little bit, and so the more people that we can get along, the more it just it pushes it, lifts our sport and lifts all the fighters up with it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's an important thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, anytime there's going to be local events on, you got to go out there and support it. There's always that, you see that meme go around, or that sort of thing where it's like, don't wait till the person's blown up and they're in the big leagues to try and support them and kind of be like, oh, let's do it. Like, let's get behind this person. Like, do it now while they're building themselves up, while they're getting there. And then, so that by the time they do get to that point, you could be like, man, I was there every step of the way. I got to see this play out.
Absolutely, and the same could be said for Fight Talk Down Under. Don't wait until we're up there rubbing shoulders with Joe Rogan on Spotify, on 9-figure contracts and whatever. You can get involved right now. When we're on the come up, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Fight News Australia, we're on Google Podcasts, and we're on Podbean. Everywhere that you get your podcasts, you can get a hold of some quality content. And again, don't wait until we're in the big leagues. For me personally, I've just interviewed John Wayne Parr on Monday night, so keep your eyes peeled for that one on Fight News Australia early next week. He's got a huge fight coming up against Eduardo Foliung on 1X, and we'll touch on that fight card in the week ahead. But that one's headlined by Rod Tang versus Demetrius Johnson, so that's going to be a really fun card. And John Wayne Parr's having his retirement fight on there, so you can hear from the man himself. I had a really good chat with him last night, so keep your eyes peeled for that one on Fight News Australia.
Yeah, and I guess from my end, potentially looking at fighting April 23rd back in Melbourne. So that'll be on Eternal, hopefully, which is already a stacked card. There's a bunch of incredible matchups on that card. I'll be there for it regardless. Obviously, my teammates fighting. Colby Thickness will be back in action, the Golden Boy. After a year of delays and stuff rounds, he'll be back in the cage, and it's going to be something that people want to watch, because that guy's super talented and a special athlete. I'm not just saying that because he's my teammate. Like, even before I joined freestyle, I was always a big fan of that kid. Absolute moron, can't stand him, but the dude can fight. But so that'll be cool. And I guess the only other thing is there's a few interesting sort of random things that got thrown my way that might be something that will join the Fight Talk Down Under sort of thing. I've had a few opportunities to talk to some notable sort of people in the last couple of days that are involved in the UFC and some of these bigger promotions, just randomly on like a random sort of whim. So I'm obviously we'll liaise with one another and kind of put some things together. But if it means that, these people are taking these opportunities that are coming their way and they're going to be on Fight Talk Down Under or involved in some way, or give us some sweet gossip or some little things that we might not hear, and we might hear ahead of a few other people, I'm all for that. Because like you said, once we've blown up, once we've got that Joe Rogan Spotify deal and we're just balling and making all that money, don't come crawling over trying to get on the train then.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we have to say a big thank you to all those who are listening at this point as well. And I hope you're all enjoying the content. And stay tuned for episode 6 next week.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. I'm already thinking about it.
I gotta watch it. You never know what might stop you. Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now. and that's for sure.